Welcome to the BWI Live Recruiting Show. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. Ryan Snyder with me today. We are not live. Couple of things juggling around this week. Ryan's going to be on vacation on Thursday, which is tomorrow. So we wanted to still give you your recruiting show. We were off last week, so we wanted to make sure we got something for you. And that's why we're sorry to everybody in the chat. We're not live today, even though we're broadcasting this as live. Appreciate everyone who always sticks around for these, by the way, because the content is going to change. The only thing is we're not going to be able to talk back and forth with you in the live chat. So we got a great show coming up for you today. And, of course, you know, if you're wondering where Fitz is, we talked about this on the Wednesday show. Our thoughts and prayers are with him. He lost his mom this week. So we're hoping to have him back in the near future. But until then, he's taking all the time he needs to do to be with his family. So our thoughts and prayers are with him this weekend, and of course over the time he's been dealing with this. So Ryan, thanks for making some time. Are you going to the beach? You going? Where are you going on vacation?
Yeah, well, first off, love you, Spitz. Hope everything goes well these next couple of weeks, man, as well as it can. It sucks. I feel so bad for his family right now, but yeah, it's terrible timing to go on vacation at the moment. Right, little damper at the moment, but yeah, we always go away for first week or so August. So just taking the kids down there, going to try and have some family time. Of course, high school football starts here on Monday, August 4th. It's usually heat acclimatization week, so it's shoulder pads sometimes, and a lot of shorts and things like that. And really, it gets rolling then the following week, August. I think 11th is the Monday. So we try and take that week to to get some family time in. And as soon as we get back, man, national games start I think it's August 15th. There'll be some national games, and August 22nd is really where things kind of get rolling on the high school scene. We'll do a preview of some of the best games and all that when I get back then, T. Frank. So I didn't tell you that, T. Frank, but I've been putting a list together. Perfect. So of all the top games that Penn State fans need to keep an eye out for here in late August and into September. So we'll get into that then. But
if I were good at this, I would have had that on a note in a calendar where we do that every year, because you do it every year. So, I would have that pre-planned already, but I have the memory of a goldfish. So I don't remember things from year to year.
Normally in this time of the year, we would be talking about the last batch just ended, right? A couple of camps, and, it's a 2-month dead period now. So we usually always kind of save those high school talks for August, because it's, August has been a dead period for a while now. And, now we're in the midst of, halfway through what feels like one big long dead period. So anyway, we'll get to that here in a little bit, but there's actually is some news. Busier week than I kind of expected it to be, with so many guys, so many players going on vacation and things like that right before their season starts. T-Frank, I don't know where exactly you want to start, buddy, but
let's start with the thing that everyone wants to talk about. Let's start with, I think maybe worst news of the day, and that would be Keon Spell announcing and talking to you about this, that he was planning on taking a couple of unofficial visits this fall. So can you take us into how all of this, as you understand it, has come to be?
I think let's start with the fact that, I know he put out a graphic and, 100% all in and all those things, but in 2025 recruiting, I think it's just kind of naive to think that a player of his skill and as coveted as he would be wouldn't end up taking a few visits elsewhere, because Keon really hasn't gone anywhere. I think he's been to – so he went one visit to UCLA, but that was because he was he plays for a 7-on-7 team called California Power. Mm-hmm. And basically it was a group visit. He was out there for other things, and they stopped at UCLA one day, and, so technically counts as a visit, but wasn't a true visit. And then 9 visits to Penn State, and that's it. And now he's the number 1 running back in the country. He's got all these schools after him. And so, truthfully, it would be kind of a detriment on his part, naive on his part, whatever you want to say, to not go and visit schools. And I know Penn State fans do not want to hear that, but that is modern day recruiting. And that's how it works. So he's going to end up visiting a handful of schools this season. Notre Dame for Texas A&M game on September 13th was the big one that caught people's eye because of Jaywan Snyder. After we actually put out this news then, T-Frank, there you go with the graphic. Appreciate it. He actually shot me a text back and said, oh, wait, by the way, I just added Ohio State for week 1 against Texas, which I was like, oh, Penn State fans are going to love that. Love to hear that.
No big deal. Just the 2 teams that raided the pantry during the June from hell for Penn State football fans in recruiting.
Yeah. Anyway, Michigan got a couple. We could It was mainly Notre Dame for sure, but yeah, Ohio State's had its fair share of damage over the year. But as you see on the graphic there, guys, Florida State for Miami later in the year. I believe that's October 4th, and then Alabama, Tennessee for October 18th. And a couple things I'd say. I mean, I kind of got through the first point of just, I understand fans see those graphics and all those things, but I think just moving forward, you got to take that with a grain of salt, and that's just the way it is when we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we can talk all day about relationships and proximity to home and how Penn State's produced running backs and all these kind of different things.
Yeah.
But the reality is money will always be top three with all these guys now moving forward. As important as relationships and all that stuff is, good education, I get all that. Find me a recruit, their money is not one of the top three most important things. And that's why visits happen at some point, I feel like. I mean, it would be great, obviously, in a perfect world where the number one running back in a class and a potential 5-star doesn't go and visit any other school. But I just think you're naive to think that wouldn't have happened at some point. So
especially with a guy that committed so early in the process, right? So, you mentioned he came to Penn State 9 times, went to, incidentally, a UCLA visit. But do you find guys that are sophomores who have a lot of visits under their belt? And I know there's guys like a Kevin Brown who maybe have a more of a linear concept of what they want out of recruiting anyway. But, like, are there guys that you feel like make that decision early and then have all the information? Feels like a lot of times when guys commit early, there is this process of will I, won't I, once they kind of get into their junior year.
There's a ton of sophomores. There are a ton of guys who start visiting schools as 8th graders, honestly, especially when you're a prominent recruit at a prominent program and, you're fetching early offers. I mean, Maxwell Hiller, I'm looking wrong. I don't think Maxwell Hiller is committing anytime soon, but, he's taken already probably 2 dozen or so visits to different schools and stuff like that. So my point with all this is, you're right, T. Frank. I mean, he committed almost a year ago. I think it was August 2nd, 2024. So we're right there at the 1 year mark. And, obviously he goes on, has a tremendous sophomore season and, now the number one running back in the country. And I think it's like consensus too. I think 24/7 and ESPN have him as number one as well. So he's a legit, he's on pace to be a 5-star plus kind of player we're talking about here. So I want to get away from the negative part of this because there is one positive that I think is important to talk about. And that's just Penn State's success in Western PA. And also Penn State's success at keeping guys committed that are from PA or within that, 3 hour or so distance. They've done an excellent job with that over the years. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really important, especially in Western Pennsylvania. Penn State, they're not hitting at 100% clip. There's been a few guys that have gotten away, in the last couple of years, but a lot of those guys are kind of also players that Penn State kind of pursued late, thinking like Cole Sullivan's guys like that. But my point with this is like, for the most part, when Terry Smith and the staff gets on, a guy from the Whippeal as a freshman, sophomore, and they recruit him hard throughout and they stay on him and they make him a priority, that player ends up at Penn State more often than not. Now, a lot of those players weren't potential 5-star plus prospects like Keon Spell. So it's, there's a lot of different ways to look at it, but I do think
another running back like Quentin Martin, who was a target for Ohio State. I mean, he wasn't in that recruiting territory.
No, not like this. Quentin started off high and kind of dropped, and Keon has a year to go. Who knows? Maybe he won't end up where he's at now. But certainly everything we're seeing on paper and on film and testing numbers and all those kind of things certainly suggests that he's going to be, if he's not number one, he's going to be a top 5 guy. Running back wise. I mean, he's a pretty special prospect. So, but again, let's just see where the cards fall. I don't want to get into this too much. It's my mentions from Notre Dame fans has been absolutely insane this week when it comes to this whole Jaywan Sider trying to poach Penn State players, and obviously Penn State Notre Dame last year in the Orange Bowl. That's the fun thing to watch. Not fun for Penn State fans maybe, but just
the entertainment factor,
the interesting dynamic. It's just going to be. But again, I mean, if you think that it's just going to be Notre Dame in the end, I mean, I think a lot of other schools will eventually end up pushing and, trying to, sway them for official visits or whatever it may be. So, there's a ways to go here, obviously, and that's both good and bad in some different ways, depending how you want to look at it. But at the end of the day, negative, yes, I think it was naive if you thought he wasn't going to visit. The positive, Penn State crushes Western Pennsylvania. They haven't had too many of those guys that they really want slip out of their grips over the years. let's see which one happens in the end.
I have another shrug sort of question, but the idea you've mentioned before, the house settlement, some of the structure that's supposed to be in place for NIL contracts. I know we can kind of look at that as paper thin, but people are supposed to be following those rules at this point, I imagine. So is this an early test in your mind of the dynamics of that for next year, where Penn State should be able to be competitive in NIL if there are these controls that are supposed to be in place? And, even James Franklin talking to Nate Bauer, some of that, you should go read that interview. He talked about NIL and some of these things. I guess I'm wondering if you see it that way.
I just think it's too early to say. We talked about this like a podcast or two ago. Like, I still believe we are a couple years away when it comes to legal fights over this and that and whatever it may be, of like really refining this system. The other thing I would add is like, okay, yeah, a lot of schools backloaded this past year. Penn State did too to some degree, I'm sure. And they won't really be able to do that now moving forward. So that's something to note. But let's also not forget that, collectives are going to exist. Yeah. There's been some recent changes with collectives and legal rulings. And I believe there was some sort of legal ruling. I apologize off the top of my head. I don't have it, all the data, but like something happened recently where I know collectives have been given a thumbs up a little bit more to do what they've been doing. And where I come back with that is, depending on how much leeway collectives do have compared to this clearinghouse, at the end of the day, Penn State is still building a stadium right now. And that is a lot of money being put into that from donors and different things like that. So I just feel like, if you're expecting wholesale changes and aggressive approach and different things like that for 2027, I still think you're probably getting a little bit ahead of yourself. Let's get the stadium through, finances get worked out. And most importantly, I still believe wholeheartedly, it's just, there's going to be different things that pop up over the next 2 years that really determine how this system is going to really look.
Our weekly response of, we'll find out. Because you're right.
I don't know.
I keep trying to frame it differently. I feel like a lawyer. I'm just trying to rephrase, put an adjective in a different place, or upon further reflection.
Honestly, what we should do? It's the same thing. A great conversation would be, we should get Pete Nikos on here. He's really good, man. I have a lot of respect for Pete. Just kind of watching the way he goes about his business and getting to know him more. Obviously guys like Ross Dellinger, Pete Thamel, all those guys are incredibly connected, decades of experience. And I really do wholeheartedly believe that Pete Nikos is kind of heading on that track. This guy's an incredibly hard worker. And where I'm going with all that is he has just been following that stuff so much more intently, than I have over the last, let's talk about years, really, for the most part. So, to have that conversation, he would be a good guy for us to maybe have on in August, honestly. And I think we could make that work. I'll shoot him a text. Yeah.
Yeah. Go do my job for me. Appreciate that.
Never mind. You can do it.
Yeah. Don't put more work on your plate. This is your time off. Some of the other things that went on here in the last week or so, sticking with Penn State's commits in the class of 2027, Khalil Taylor changing high schools. Give us a little bit of what you know about this situation. Bit of a surprise here, right on the eve of the start of high school football season.
Yeah, a lot of things are interesting with this. And first off, I want to give Mike White from Pittsburgh Post-Gazette credit for his reporting on this. Obviously, Khalil confirmed with me and all those kind of things, but Mike did a great job of kind of learning the details of it, and I want to make sure he gets his credit due. But long story short here, Khalil kind of explained to Mike that one, his father lives in Pine Richland, and two, there was a death in the family, where he lived with his mother, someone very close to him, and he wants to get out of that district and move closer to where his father is. Who am I to say that's not true? I believe it. It is what it is. I think where fans are kind of interested in this, or maybe not even fans, but just high school football fans in Western Pennsylvania, is the fact that Anthony Smith, the quarterback that Seton LaSalle brought in to be their top quarterback this year. He was at Southmoreland last year, had a very good freshman year. He was just ruled ineligible last week, I believe it was, for this season because his transfer was, ruled as at least partially because of athletics. So the timing of it is like, oh, okay, this is interesting. But, who am I to say, that, everything that Khalil's put out there isn't true. So I just kind of give him both sides of that. Who knows what it is. I believe there will be some kind of ruling on his situation. And either way, he's not going to be able to play in the playoffs this year. That happened last year to Tysier Denmark, going from Roman Catholic to Imhotep charter. So the thing that's a little different is, usually it's public schools to private schools. Well, this is private to public, right? So I think a lot of people believe that because he's making that switch, it won't maybe ding him. But also at the same time, Pine Richland is a powerhouse in 5A, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out there. Of course, he's with Jay Timmons now too, who Penn State just offered about a week ago, 2026 corner, who's committed to Florida State. That'll be interesting to see if anything happens there. But yeah, so he's going to be a Ram, and it's going to be interesting because he's stepping up in competition big time. From Seton LaSalle to Pine Richland. I believe Seton LaSalle's a 2A school, I want to say, where Pine Richland obviously is a 5A, and they're consistent kind of semifinalists in the PIAA over the last decade or so. So it'll be interesting. I'm excited to watch him step up in that competition level and see what he can do.
It's going to be an interesting August, as Ryan mentioned, and it's going to be here pretty soon. So one of the good things you can do is to subscribe here to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. I haven't mentioned this recently, especially early in the show when, everyone's interests are high. Helps us out a ton if you like the video and subscribe. I have to say, a ton of you have done that, and we, all the behind-the-scenes metrics are that most of you subscribe and most of you are here on a regular basis. But there's still the handful of you that check in and out, and if you want to make the commitment. We got awesome recruiting information from Ryan. We got awesome news on the other side of the docket from football with all of our great reporters here on the BWI Live Show. Also, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Great time to remind you to subscribe here to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. And, of course, to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, where you can get updates of information throughout training camp, as we're going to have all that stuff rolling for you once we get into August full time, and there's some feedback of things have happened at practice, so then there's things to talk about at practice. So all of that is a great opportunity for you to do now that it's early August and we are into the season, and we're just on the door of the high school football season as well. This show is brought to you by Andy Ludicky at My Perfect Franchise. If you're ready to leave the corporate rat race for the American dream, you want to take advantage of your skills that you have spent a lifetime developing. You're a business person. And I say you're a business person because I don't know any of the details. I get ads for CRMs and ABCs and quality control nonsense. I don't know any of it. I'm a dude that talks about football on the internet. But you might actually have valuable skills in business sense that you can apply to your own career. Well, Andy at myperfectfranchise.net, he can help you buy into a franchise and help take all that information and knowledge you have in your mind and go to make money for yourself. He's been doing this for a long time now. He's bought into franchises multiple times. He owns multiple businesses, and he is one of the best when it comes to placing people not just into a situation, but into the right situation as best he can do for you. There's no guarantees that you're going to be successful, but he's been through all of it, and he can give you the roadmap of what to avoid, some opportunities, things like that. His services are 100% free to you, and he's here to help if you have any questions about business ownership. And honestly, even if you aren't 100% sold from what I've said, you should probably talk to Andy because he knows way more. If you have any questions, I can't help you. 404-973-9901. Great reason to go to the Blue White Illustrated message board and message Andy, or Andy at myperfectfranchise.net. And again, his services are 100% free to you. So you can go talk to him, see if it's a right fit, and hopefully make some of that cheddar for yourself. Ryan, let's get into the class of 2027. We've mentioned here we're in this dead period for recruiting, but 2027 is very important in the next couple of months. You've already been working on game lists and stuff like that for the fall, but I really liked what you did, where you went through the class of 2027. Was it just Pennsylvania or the region?
Yeah, just PA.
Just PA. Guys that are on the radar and that you think are important for this year. And then you broke it up by tiers. So go to the website, check it out. We're going to talk about some of that here today. So let's start with that top tier, the guys that you think are the most important to know right now heading into their junior seasons for the class of 2027. Who do you got?
I mean, we got into, I don't know exactly, I would say probably 30, maybe got up to 40 or so players. I kind of broke them into okay, these are the guys that most of you should know about by now. I call them the top of the board. Then I kind of broke it into a second section call them kind of on the bubble guys, and they will be how does their junior season film look, things like that. And that'll kind of separate that group from, these are guys they're going to pursue, these guys they aren't. And then the third group was kind of, others to keep an eye on. So to start it off, like you said, T. Frank, with those top of the board guys, I think by now, if you have been watching the show, you should know Maxwell Hiller, Matthew Gregory. Those are two. I mean, Matthew Gregory is kind of knocking on the door to be a 5-star now himself, right? So I think fans know kind of where those guys are at. And I will mention, Matthew Gregory this week actually said he has one visit locked in, and it is the Oregon game. So that's an encouraging sign. Of course, he's, the fantastic track athlete as well, ran a 10.46 100-meter dash this past spring. And that's why schools all across the country are now knocking on his door. I think he's added Florida State, Miami, Michigan. Because
it's here on the screen. He's so casually fast, it's hard to tell if he's fast on screen. But we all know the numbers are there, and he runs away from anyone on screen. I just think it's funny when you see a guy that has such speed that it looks casual. It's a real deal in terms of like athlete potential there.
Yeah, he crushed it at the Under Armour camp in Baltimore as well, as far as like testing numbers and all those things. So it's not just like a situation where he's doing it on the track. I mean, I think he had a 4.35 laser time. I mean, T. Frank, we've talked about those laser times at Under Armour. Yeah. They're usually like a tenth or two kind of slower than what you would get as a hand time at a Penn State camp or something like that. So to have a 40 like that's insane. Over a 9 broad. So clearly
that's a great start
there
too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, he's got and he's going to have to look. Speed is certainly the name of his game at the moment, but he'll have to improve route running and different things like that. But you can't teach speed, and that's why schools are knocking on the door from all over across the country. But anyway, I don't want to get into those guys too much. I want to kind of go down a little bit to the guys who I have as top of the board that maybe fans would wonder about a little bit. The main, there's a couple of them. I mean, Abraham Sesse, I think, is worth pointing out. The Downingtown East, the defensive end, and don't get me wrong, he's a 4-star guy now. I believe I think only Rivals has him rated at the moment. I think 24/7 ESPN still have to have him rated. But we saw him at the what was it, the June 18th camp, I believe it was, T. Frank, and certainly he has a lot of work to do, his technique and all those things. But the burst he had off the edge was what you can't teach, right? And that's why I think he's firmly kind of put himself into a spot where Penn State's absolutely going to. Yeah, they're going to, 6'4", 210, really good reach, all those kind of things. But it was that burst off the edge that really kind of, okay, I see it now, right? And I'm not saying we didn't see it on film to some degree, but really kind of seeing it up close. And that camp had a lot of really good linemen there too. Reed Ramsey came up from Florida. He's a 4-star guy. Lucas Roa came out from California. He's a 4-star guy. There's one or two others too. Who might? Leighton Von Brandt was there. Obviously, Penn State's top commit. So I think there's one or two more as well. So Brody McNeil, another 4-star guy. So my point is, he was beating some really good players that day, and that's where it was kind of. It took me from on this list, right, of like, well, maybe he's a bubble guy where you gotta have to see how the film works out. To okay, now I get it. This is a player that Deion Barnes is absolutely going to push for.
I think he got faster too. Like, just to follow up on that, the burst in person and the way he played. That physical development of a guy who's big but young, I think his athleticism caught up to the sides, because the frame he's got here and the way he plays, it's not vastly different, but it's enough of a difference that I think, Ryan, you're spot on in terms of like, oh wow, that was different to see in person than it is on film. And this is the interesting thing about recruiting is these guys are growing in real time. They are developing in front of us. So what you see from here is on October or in September. And what we saw in June could be like a totally different player for a lot of these guys.
And that's what all these programs want. They don't want there's how many examples of T.A. Cunningham, like some of those guys over the years who kind of maxed out as sophomores, right? There's so many examples of that where, these programs want the guys who are just now hitting their stride as sophomores, and then are going to get more, explosive, bigger, stronger, faster, all those kind of things as juniors and seniors. And that's what I felt like we got a good preview of with Sesse, at that camp. So but the other two I really want to mention here, Carter Bonner, athlete out of Penn Hills, and Gabriel Jenkins. I have as an athlete out of Monte Christian. Penn State's, we have him listed as a linebacker. I'm kind of still leaving him as an athlete at the moment. But I want to get the thing that's interesting with those two is like these are great athletes, and I think that Penn State's going to push for these guys no matter what. But what's interesting is just position versatility, where they want to play compared to maybe where Penn State thinks they're best, all those kind of things. For example, with Bonner, 6'3", 180. To me, that screams, and I think to Penn State and some others, wow, that's a really good wide receiver frame. Carter wants to play corner, and obviously you can play corner at that size. But I think just what'll be interesting to watch is the dynamic of how hard Penn State pushes or interested in him as a wide receiver compared to how hard Carter maybe pushes back on. No, I'm absolutely playing defense. And again, I think that he's a good enough athlete and high enough on Penn State's board where they'll get him in the program no matter what. We see that every year with a handful of guys. They want to play X position. Penn State really wants them to play Y. We're going to take them and figure it out later. And that's kind of how he fits. But it's going to be an interesting dynamic to watch as far as how that maybe impacts his recruitment and how maybe it impacts his thoughts on Penn State. And then with Gabriel Jenkins, I feel pretty confident Penn State's the team to beat with Gabriel Jenkins. Obviously, they added Deshaun Burnett, and then David Davis is now committed in the 2026 class. So his two, teammates are coming here. This is a program Penn State's doing well with. He's a good enough athlete that, again, Penn State's going to stay on him. But is he a linebacker or is he a safety? What's he going to be? That's what's going to be really interesting to watch him follow here, kind of moving forward. So I want to just point those guys out.
Davis was the same thing, right? Like just a little bit bigger version of David Davis, where he's either linebacker or safety, but that corner linebacker kind of amoeba in the secondary of how he's going to develop. That's interesting that it came from that kind of profile is coming from Monty Christian 2 years in a row.
Well, even Deshaun Burnett to some degree at some point was a linebacker, going to be an edge. It's kind of something consistent there with that program. But one thing I'll add too with Jenkins is we have him right now as a 3-star, 13th in PA. I think it's way too low. I think if you got the poll Penn State's recruiting staff on him, they'd have him twice that high. Maybe not top 5 in the state, but 6, 7, somewhere in that kind of ballpark. So I do think he's a guy, and right now he has a 4-star rating in the industry rankings. 24/7 has him as a 4-star. 24/7 has him really high. I think it's 61 in the country. And whether he's that high or not, I'm not exactly sure. What I would say though is just from understanding Penn State's board better after this notebook, he is absolutely 6, 7, 8. They really like him and they're going to push hard for him. Obviously, with the caveat for all these guys, including even Maxwell Hiller, that they have good junior seasons and things don't go drastically bad.
Right.
I have to.
Right.
It Fitz, we don't have you here today, buddy. I wish we did, but I got to get that in there for you just to make sure I don't, get everybody too hyped up on.
It's
on
early,
guys, but
filling in for it. It's early.
It is.
There are no must gets.
Maxwell Hiller might be a must get, but okay. Anyway,
who do you got next?
Do you want to go that next year?
Is that the last for that?
Brandon Lockley's in there. I mean, I don't want to. I want people to read the article. We don't got to get into every one of these guys. Brandon Lockley at St. Joseph.
Let's get to on the bubble guys.
Yeah, and that's. I think we could go pretty in depth on some of these guys, like Cade Cooper. Just got an offer from Penn State 2 weeks ago. Really good looking prospect. He was fun to watch at Penn State's. I think it was Penn State's last 7-on-7, or no, I think it was their second 7-on-7. Excuse me. 6'3", 195. You're going to see a lot of wide receiver film for Cade Cooper, and he's certainly impressed at that camp. That T-Frank, were you there for that one-handed catch he had over the guy?
Of course, I missed it. I was there. I was just looking at a different field.
Yeah, everyone was going crazy at the time for that one. He made a really impressive play at that camp. But the thing here with Cade Cooper, and this is why I have him still is on the bubble, is he's going to play safety this year for the first time. And if you ask around people with Malvern, including their head coach Dave Guerrero, he kind of keeps pushing man, this kid has everything you want in a safety. He didn't play it last year as a sophomore. They had a senior there, as like most high school programs, they're going to go with the experience. But just from what they've seen from him, leading up to this and 707s and all those things, the vision and all that has really impressed the staff so far. So that's why I have him as an on the bubble guy. Just got to think, I think long term, we're going to call him an athlete, and he could play wide receiver too. I don't want to knock and think that he can't play wide receiver at this level, but the excitement, the people's eyes kind of light up a little bit when they start talking about what he could be as a safety, at 6'3", 195. So that's kind of why I have him as a bubble guy right now. Let's see how that progression goes. He's got a bunch of quality offers already: Syracuse, Boston College, Vatech, a bunch of regional top schools, Maryland, I believe. I think Duke and Michigan State, maybe Kentucky was another one. But yeah, anyway, my point is, if he goes out there and play safety like people think he can, at a school like Malvern Prep, who, by the way, they play some great competition this year, Del Barton, Gonzaga, all types of really quality schools. And he plays that position well. Oh, yeah, he's going to be in position to see his offer list double or if not triple.
Yeah, they play LaSalle out of the gate in week 1. So it's it's a good schedule there for Malvern, who's starting to churn out some really good prospects. I know everyone's going to see Cade Cooper think Lonnie White a couple years ago. I'm talking to some people, and I think that not that he's in the Lonnie White category in terms of athleticism, because Lonnie had a lot of different tools, but 6'3", 195, moves really well, great receiver, and also a great kid. Really well put together from that aspect of being able to, having all those intangibles you want of a guy that's going to work his way into whatever position you want him to play, and is going to be like a good piece of your organization. So another guy I agree to have your eyes on this fall. Is there anyone else from this on the bubble category you think is super interesting that you want to point out?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the bubble guys are interesting, right? Like that's the fun group. And I started doing this notebook, and I got so in depth to the top guys where I was like, man, if I go into all these individual guys, it's gonna be like a 4,000 word notebook. But a couple I'll point out: Zayden Smith, Cumberland Valley, linebacker prospect, really impressive looking athlete, 6'4", 200. Another guy who played. I mean, I would say he played safety and wide receiver last year. I thought he grabbed my attention. Yeah, he will be. He grabbed my attention as a wide receiver last year, just as a player I didn't know a ton about, but certainly size and athletic movement skills, all those kind of things showed up. But yeah, 6'4", 200, certainly linebacker looks to be his spot. And, we have him as an athlete right now, but that's where he's going to probably play. I mean, I went to a 7-on-7 for Cumberland Valley a couple weeks ago, and he was playing a lot of the outside linebacker spot. So the thing I'll stress here is just like, look, all the athleticism is there. Penn State offered for a reason. Ohio State offered for a reason too, by the way.
Immediately, went to camp, got an offer, went to Ohio State, got an offer. So had a really strong June.
Syracuse and Toledo have also offered too. But yeah, whenever you see guys go to Penn State, Ohio State, boom, boom, get offers like that, I'm actually kind of surprised more haven't maybe trickled. But also at the same time, I'm not, just because of how close we are to the season. It's going to be a linebacker. Like, school's going to learn so much about him in September. Like that's I would not be shocked if he really sees offers rolling in October once they get 3-4 games of film and can really dissect everything. So but I'm really impressed with Zayden as far as athleticism and all that stuff. It's just, how does he pick up this position, right? How does he learn how to read offensive linemen a little bit better and drop it into coverage and all those things? Like, he has all the athleticism in the world. And the other thing I'll add to is Zayden should only be a sophomore this year. I mean, he really, his freshman year, he should have been an 8th grader. He moved from Indiana, and just, the way his mom started him with school when he was young. He's very young for everybody else. So that's encouraging from an athletic perspective of, oh, wow, there's actually a lot more development here to come. And he's already obviously pretty impressive. But to me, it's just, how does he pick up the position? How does he make an impact in those ways? And I do feel pretty good about what he could do. And I think he's going to be a guy there. But, for now, we're going to call him a bubble guy, and let's watch the film.
I spoke to him this offseason too. It was interesting. He actually came to camps as a receiver, went to his first camp as a receiver, talked to his coach. Also, I think the first camp was Syracuse, talked to one of their coaches, and they're like, hey, you should play linebacker. You should do that instead. And he played a little bit on his highlights. He's got a couple of plays at outside linebacker. I don't know if they classify that as a safety, but he's been playing that Sam position out in the field a little bit. And so focusing on that, I'm going to be interested in. And honestly, Ryan, like, seeing him in person, I mean, I know he's playing linebacker this year. Is he a linebacker? Is he a D end? He's got a big frame, and we'll see how he grows. But I think that's something I'm keeping in the back of my mind of how he plays and how he shows up after his junior season. Because I think that, along with having a 6'4" linebacker is great. Having a 6'4" hybrid player that can do either of those things, I think Penn State's done pretty well with those guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's interesting. For now, certainly it's been all linebacker talk, but he's playing outside linebacker for a reason, right? I mean, they want to use his skills off the edge. He can rush, and there's some of that on his film if you watch. But he'll be a lot of fun to watch. So just a couple other guys I want to get into quick, like Zyke Scott, a very interesting prospect. I really liked watching him as a freshman at Imhotep. I don't get the sense that his Imhotep, or his sophomore year at Imhotep, went as well as he had hoped for it to go. And now he transferred to LaSalle. We know LaSalle is on a roll right now. It's one of the fast rising, up and coming programs in Pennsylvania. They beat St. Joe's Prep last year in the regular season, lost in the playoffs, but they were consistently, I think, a top 3-4 ranked team in the state all year, and they're going to be that again this year, obviously, with Joey O'Brien, Grayson McHugh, all those guys. So, Gavin Sidwell, of course. But Zyke Scott, really curious to see how he progresses this year, in that system. They have great coaching at that school. I really have enjoyed kind of getting to know the program they're building there at LaSalle. I give them a lot of credit. I'm very curious and kind of excited to see the steps that Zyke Scott could take this year, because I remember watching him as a freshman against Archbishop Spalding. I went down there to watch Malik Washington, Jameer Wallace-Coleman, a bunch of different guys. And I did not know Zyke really going into that game. And, he's a freshman. He didn't play a ton. But, just being able to kind of see the way he moves and all that stuff, and then talking to coaches, like, they were really highly, pointing him out as, one of the next guys. And obviously he's at LaSalle now, but, he's certainly a recruit to keep an eye on. He's got a bunch of quality offers already. So I'm going to have him as a bubble guy at the moment, but another one that wouldn't shock me if I would honestly wouldn't shock me if he ended up in this class. I mean, I could say that about Zayden Smith and some other guy, Kate Cooper. There's a bunch in this group that wouldn't shock me all that much. So, and then one more I definitely want to get into is Stanley Montgomery. Chief Frank, we watched him at, I think it was that June 18th camp again. That was the same camp as Isaac Chukura and Abraham Sese, and then, all those linemen that I mentioned earlier. Montgomery had a really good showing at that camp, and he left there without an offer. But Penn State made it very clear, hey, we are very interested. Would love to watch your film a little bit. And I got the vibe talking to people, I think a day later, that he's probably going to be an offer guy. But why not just take your time a little bit? Let's watch this film. Well, then he goes and commits to Syracuse 3 days later on June 22nd. And so that was interesting. But I don't think that's going to stop Penn State from pursuing him. They're sticking to their plan. Want to watch his junior season film. He's at Archbishop Ryan, by the way, down in Philadelphia. And I think that's kind of the way this is progressing, is let's see how those first handful of games go. But everything kind of stacked out measurable wise. And, he looked good that day against, again, some very good quality offensive linemen. So I would have him marked. And the other thing I'd add too is aside from Joseph Buchanan, there are not a lot of defensive tackles in this region for 2027. And that's going to make it interesting, especially a guy like Montgomery here, who, he might be committed elsewhere, but he might end up emerging as one of the top 3-4 guys in the region as far as D tackles go. And, that's going to give Penn State all the reason to offer and push for him to flip.
So those are your notable names. I think you called that on the bubble. So other names down here on this list, a little bit longer list in your article. Again, people should go read it and see all those players that are on this list of Pennsylvania prospects. Who stands out to you as somebody who has the opportunity to move a little bit higher in this list? And as you point out in the article, just because you're not one of those top 2 lists doesn't mean you're not going to end up in Penn State's class. The evidence shows that a lot of these guys can make a big move during their junior year.
And so on the board, I kind of got into this a little bit of whenever we post something like this, there's always, because I didn't break down every single individual player, right? So whenever you do that, there's going to be somebody on the board who's like, well, what about this guy? Tell me everything you can. And I tried to make it clear. I was like, hey, look, a lot of these guys have visited. I ran some of this by different sources and all that, but when you're talking 30, 40 guys, you just don't have time to get into every individual guy. And that's really going to be a big focus of mine in August and going into September, is kind of working on this next group of guys. Now, there are players in here that I think fans should know about by now. Or like Easton Neely, example, is a wide receiver at a Roman Catholic. He's camped a couple times. Let's see where things go there. Armin Hill's committed to West Virginia right now, running back. He's actually a 4-star guy out of West Mifflin. I think fans have probably seen his name around. Mekhi Graham is another good-looking running back prospect. Not sure if he's quite Penn State level yet. Teammates with Matthew Gregory at Owen J. Roberts. One of the guys that stands out to me from this list, though, is Kane Van Norden. Been researching him a decent amount in the last couple of days. We have him at 6'7", 242. I got to kind of do a little research on that exact size. He's a defensive end prospect out of Newman Goretti in Philadelphia. Quality 4 offers, though. Maryland, Syracuse, Nebraska, Oklahoma. And all of them have kind of come, since kind of dating back to the spring. So he's a guy I've watched a little bit, but I haven't watched a ton on. But I do think he's I want to check on the size and all that kind of stuff, kind of verify some things. I think he's certainly big. How big is he is kind of what I need to verify. And, is he, the thing is, 6'7", like that's not really edge. You know what I mean? Like, what is he? Yeah. Like, that's more like
that's
Jared
not even
Odrick.
really a D lineman for Penn State. I don't know.
I'm thinking Jared Odrick, basically. Like he's
right.
I mean, there's been others. I mean, what was Odrick? I don't even think Odrick was 6'7". He was like 6'5", maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
There are very few 6'7" defensive tackles. Most of the time, and you want guys that are a little bit stockier, win that leverage battle. 6'7", you're talking offensive lineman normally.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's pretty big. So my point is just like, he's got some quality offers though. Oklahoma's offering this guy. I mean, that grabs my attention. Nebraska, Syracuse, and Maryland, that makes complete sense. So just as far as a quality player in the region that, there's some positive talk about, things like that. I think he's an interesting name to maybe keep an eye on. Owen and Preston Bernard out of Haverford School, they were the offensive linemen who won MVP. I forget which one, if it's Owen or Preston. T-Frank got the Elite 11 All-22 that we were at. They were the guys who won MVP there. And they had good showings too at, I believe it was the Under Armour camp in New Jersey, I believe it was. The thing with them is like, how big are they? Because like we have them like 6'2"-ish. Like, are they actually 6'2"? Are they maybe a little closer to 6'1"? And don't get me wrong. I mean, Penn State has taken a couple, guys, there's, Troutman and guys like that. But are they potential centers? Like they'd have to show a lot still. And that's the case for this whole bottom of this list. Like there's a reason where I'm kind of like, the main point, I guess what I was trying to do with this list, and if you read the article, I'll just kind of get into it. It's like, here's 20 guys that right now I don't get the sense that Penn State's pushing all out for. But last year at this time, I would put Grayson McHugh on this list. Penn State didn't offer Grayson McHugh until November. I would have had him as, other names. I know he's a good player. I don't really, I got to learn more about him. Terry Wiggins. He's a 4-star linebacker now. We weren't talking about Terry Wiggins at all this time last year. He didn't get an offer until October. So I'm trying to just like, okay, here's some guys who have visited. Here's some guys who have some quality offers, things like that. And history says one or two of these guys are going to end up getting an offer and eventually maybe becoming, an important prospect for Penn State. So, I encourage, people to check out the article. I get into a little more details on some of these guys in that article. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the gist of, those guys at the bottom of the list where, history says that somebody's going to emerge out of this.
Again, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com is the place to go for that. Also, the place to go for information about visitors in September of 2025 for the regular season. Already happening. I know we're technically still in July when you're watching this, unless you're watching this on Friday or Saturday. And then, of course, welcome to August. But I'm sure the people are beating down the door to see Penn State play FIU. So you want to talk about that list, or do you want to skip ahead to the Whiteout game? I don't know which one would be.
I don't have a single person for FIU. I'll be very blunt with you on that one. I have two for Nevada. We'll save that discussion maybe for a little later. But
they've been getting the joke because they're the first game. I wanted to go to FIU just so it wasn't always Nevada.
Hey, Nevada's. I mean, we'll see. Yeah, they're all going to be crappy non-conference games. It is what it is. Penn State's been a running joke on Feinbaum recently about their non-conference. I've seen that joke like 4 or 5 times. And don't get me wrong, like they kind of deserve it. It's not a great non-conference schedule.
I don't know. If you play Mercer in October, or November, whatever.
Either way. So, but listen, the first thing I'll stress is like, remember back in February when we were talking about all those guys who are going to take official visits, and it was this massive flood of like 40 guys had official visits, and then like what? 70% of them took them and 30% didn't. It's kind of same with this situation where, and then give Penn State credit, like they do this regularly, and for the most part, it does work for them. Where, they know this is their marquee game this year, without a doubt. I still think Indiana, Nebraska, they could be good games, but they're late in the season and they're doing playoffs, so you can't really schedule that in advance. It's just kind of guys have to figure out their playoff schedules before they know where they can really visit. Yeah. So what they're doing right now is they're being incredibly aggressive as far as saying, you are a top guy. We would love to get you here for this game. Here's all the things you got to know. And it's easy for players to be like, yeah, on July 28th or 27th, whatever it may have been, to be like, yeah, hell yeah, I want to go to the Whiteout game. Right. But obviously, let's circle back with those guys a week or two out, and we'll have a better feel. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be changes to schedules. There's going to be a lot of different things that impact guys. With that all said, there are a lot of really good players who have discussed that in recent weeks.
Who are the guys that you think are the most realistic to show up that you've confirmed so far?
You mean not Kennedy Brown, the #1 player in the country from Houston, Texas? Because that was where I was going to start.
No, I wasn't thinking of Kennedy. I was thinking.
I actually think he might come. There is some interest in him, but he's from Houston, Texas. Like he's going to play a game the night before.
I was thinking of somebody from Philly or Pittsburgh. I was thinking of somebody drive.
I'm just teasing you. There's a but. I mean, Colt Lumpers absolutely stands. He's your boy. I had to start with Lumpers because I know you're a big fan. Which, by the way,
he cut his hair. I was more of a fan when he had like the wavy locks.
Who's the guy on The Simpsons? Sasha Bob?
I don't watch The Simpsons. Sorry, man.
Where's Fitz when I need him? I mean, never mind. I can't make that joke right now. Not bad timing for that. Anyway, Lumpers, really good looking player. I think I'll tell you what, he had a really good camp performance. One that I didn't realize was as good. And he was already like, okay, Penn State liked him a lot, but let's see how this tight end board shakes out. Where now I think they're pushing for him. And not that he'll be an early commit or anything like that, but he's firmly, he's not a Pennsylvania guy, but if he was, I would have had him in that article as a top of the board kind of guy right now.
He's an interesting one. Now that he showed up a year ago as a 10th grader, or as a 9th grader, I think he was, at 6'5", like fully the size that he is now. Are you saying like he's a tight end prospect for Penn State? Because we have been wondering out loud whether or not he's going to play tight end or be maybe grow into an offensive lineman because he was so big at that point. What's your sense? I don't have a good sense because I was watching a bunch of other people this year having seen him in the past. Do you have a sense of that? Is that what you were leaning towards? What you were talking about just then?
This will surprise you. I'm trying to find the text messages I had with somebody about this, but I had someone say, dude, he ran so well at their camp that they kind of wonder if he could play receiver. I'm not joking. I'm not joking with that. Now, again, the conversation was I think I think he's a tight end. Yes, I do think he's a tight end. It was kind of a little bit of a joke, but also like
a surprise.
I'm not joking though. Like, the athletically, he really impressed them at that camp. So, long story short, yes, he will be out for the whiteout. He's got a handful of other visits kind of set and upcoming though. I know he's going to go to Michigan for the Ohio State game at the end of the year. He's going to go to Florida for their game against Tennessee, and then he's also going to go to Tennessee for their game against Arkansas in October. There was one other one too. I think it's Florida State against Alabama August 30th. So just kind of give you Florida, Tennessee, Florida State. Yeah, those kind of seem like the schools that are going to be in the mix here.
A lot of really good offers from him, and as you mentioned, those visits he got coming up. Been to Penn State a lot. I thought it would be more than 5 times. I was just checking out his profile here. Been to Rutgers and Connecticut. I would have he's been around for so long that I thought he would have been to Penn State at least 8 or 9 times, but 5. It's still leading everybody, but that was just an interesting thing.
He didn't make it for a game last season, and that's why it kind of feels like so because he's camped twice. He did like a junior day, I think, in like 2024. And then he's been here quickly. He came back in April and then came in June to camp again. But he didn't. He
feels like a guy that's working to get that offer, and it feels like he wants Penn State is a place he wants to be around at the very least.
Yeah. I mean, I would say this. Like I thought, again, before this camp, before kind of some of the things I learned, I kind of did look at him as like a bubble guy, right? And that's how it always kind of is with tight ends. I mean, Sean did a great article recently about how I don't think any of Penn State's tight ends right now were offered before their junior seasons or something like that. Like I forget the exact stat, but it was the point being of like all the early tight end offers only mean so much. With that said, though, athletically, he's a little bit bigger than Henderson and some of those other guys, so he doesn't run quite as fast as them. But at that size, it was not that far off. Is kind of the point I'm getting at, and that's where I think Colt Lumpers now is a guy where I firmly believe, they're going to push here. So I don't think he's going to commit or anything like that anytime soon. He does seem to be interested in some SEC schools, but circle the name.
I've been just disrupting your flow the entire show. So I'm going to let you go off here. Who are the other guys you want to talk about?
Buddy, I got 5 more minutes and then I'm off to the beach. So you disrupt all you want. I could not care less. I'm in a good mood today. Just a couple other guys. Anthony Sweeney confirmed with Steve Wilfong that he's coming back. I did a story with Sweeney I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago it was now. But he's a potential 5-star guy. I believe he's right outside. I think he's like 18th in the country at the moment. In the industry rankings. that's going to be a 5-star, if he stays that high. And I think Rivals has him at number 50 and everybody else has him like top 20. He's without a doubt one of the more athletic defensive ends in the region, 6'4", 230, out of Good Counsel High School. The thing that's interesting with Sweeney is that he actually only visited Penn State for the first time in June. He was at a camp, I believe, previously with Good Counsel. Obviously, Good Counsel's come to a couple of team camps, but like taking a true visit, he actually just did that somewhat recently. Seemed like it went pretty well. He's always spoken highly of Deion Barnes and the way Penn State goes about their business, just the way they run their program and all that. It just didn't get here for a visit. And that's kind of surprising a little bit because, he has visited a bunch of schools like Maryland, West Virginia, Tennessee, I think Ohio State, Clemson, South Carolina, maybe a couple others. Like there's been plenty of visits for him. But to get to the point here is I do believe that recent visit was a good one, a positive one for Penn State, a little bit of an eye opener. And that should have Penn State in the mix here firmly moving forward. Getting back for the Oregon game, absolutely awesome. At the same time, he's probably going to end up being a 5-star defensive end from the Mid-Atlantic region. So can't wait to check back next year.
Yeah, that won't cause any hard feelings for fans on the message board, or at least any consternation as we go through his recruiting process. Ryan, good stuff, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate you squeezing me in. Sean, we love you. Thoughts and prayers, man. Hopefully, you're not gone too long, man. We're thinking of you, though. And, just apologize, guys, for not having a live show this week. I appreciate T. Frank filming this ahead of time, so my wife was not mad at me for making her leave at noon tomorrow, or as you're listening to this, noon today. And we could actually get down there at a decent hour on Thursday. So I will be in and out, obviously, with Sean, busy with the moment with his family. I won't completely check out on everybody over here the next week. T. Frank, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do the podcast next Thursday, but we'll talk about it Wednesday when we know a little more Sean status, and maybe I'll be doing it from a park bench somewhere. So we'll figure it out.
We'll do that, and we'll schedule that once we get off air, and we'll make sure you get your full allotment of vacation because you've been holding it down for all off season. Awesome work, obviously, with recruiting in June with the class of 2026. I feel better. I always feel good when I talk to you and Fitz about the upcoming class of 2027, because kind of like when you go to those 7-on-7 camps and there's 1,000 kids playing football and you don't know where your eyes should be, the work you guys do to target, like as best you can, the players for us to know. Excellent stuff. Appreciate you. I know everyone here in the show appreciates you as well. We're going to be back, not next week. We're going to be back on Saturday. Penn State Media Day, James Franklin Press Conference, highlights from camp. We'll have maybe even some thoughts and roundups, all those things. It's here. Penn State football season starts. We'll have James Franklin Wednesday weekly press conferences from now until the end of eternity, or January, whatever whichever one comes first. We'll be giving you all that here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. Good time, as always, to remind you, subscribe. That way you get all the notifications. And YouTube says, hey, people like this channel, we'll keep showing it to other fans that like college football and Penn State football, and that way we can continue to exist. And that's what we all want to do. So we'll be back on Saturday with camp. It's here. We'll talk to you then.